Guys, our last macromolecule that we're going to talk about for this chapter are nucleic acids. Now, the monomer of nucleic acids is a nucleotide. You've probably recognized this nucleotide word before. We're not going to go really in depth with this macromolecule just because we see it a lot more in the later chapters. We're going to briefly go over DNA and RNA, but we go over both of those a lot more in later chapters. So it's kind of a waste for us to go over it now and then later again. We're going to touch upon it now and then come back to it later. Three parts of a nucleotide that are important: the pentose sugar, the phosphate group, and nitrogen-containing base. See here's that phosphate group that makes this whole molecule very polar. You can see here those oxygens make it very polar. Here's that sugar group. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 ring or carbon ring here. This nitrogen-containing base, you can see here there's 2 rings here. When it has nitrogen in place of that carbon, we call it nitrogen-containing base. It has nitrogen in it. So whenever you see this ratio of, you have a 1-to-1-to-1 where you see the pentose sugar, the phosphate group, and the nitrogen base, you know it's going to be a nucleotide, which makes it a nucleic acid. The first example of a nucleic acid is DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. It's double-stranded. It's a genetic template for the organism, which just means it makes up who you are, and it determines your amino acid sequence. We're going to see a little bit of this when we talk about and do activities in class when we talk about proteins, but you should know a little bit about DNA from your biology classes and middle school classes. DNA just makes us basically who we are. Same with RNA. RNA is going to be just like a photocopy of the DNA. It's single-stranded. It has most of the same bases, but it's going to be single-stranded instead of double-stranded. You can see here are the differences. You can see the double strand versus a single strand. We replace the thymine with uracil in RNA. It's basically the same molecule here. You can see the phosphate groups here are the same. The bases are mostly the same. The only really big difference is this deoxyribose and ribose. Within the ribose, you have an extra oxygen here. So they're very, very similar. So don't think DNA and RNA, the molecularly, like how they are as nucleotides is different. They're pretty similar. Again, ribonucleic acid only has this extra oxygen. But there are, again, major differences like thymine, uracil, and the single versus double strand. One type of macromolecule that you may not recognize as a nucleotide is ATP. And you should have seen ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, in an earlier class like biology, maybe even chemistry, but definitely your middle school classes as well. It's, again, composed of an adenine, a ribose sugar, actually 3 phosphate groups. You can see here there's a phosphate, there's a phosphate, there's a phosphate. This is our energy currency of the cell. Whenever your body takes in food, yes, it's taking in a form of energy, but we can't use that energy right then. We have to convert it to ATP. We do that by combining the last phosphate group here to an ADP molecule, which is adenosine diphosphate. So technically, ATP are nucleotides. It's something you're not used to recognizing them as. They are nucleotides. Here's that energy transfer that we talked about in the last slide. ADP is an adenosine diphosphate, which means it has 2 phosphate groups. We're going to have these free-floating phosphate groups found within our cells. What happens is when you get energy from your food, it goes through metabolism, it breaks down. We take that energy and convert that energy to reform ATP by bonding this last phosphate group. This is called the ATP cycle. So again, we need energy to put this last phosphate group in to ADP. It has to bond here on that second phosphate group. Where we get that energy is from our food. Now, when we use this energy, that last phosphate group is going to break off. Now, here's the analogy I give. ADP is like a dead battery. ATP is like a fully charged battery. So again, we're going to re-energize it by eating food and converting that energy that we find in the food into the ATP. We use the ATP and we break off that last phosphate group. This is a cycle that goes on daily. It happens trillions of times a day just to supply your body with energy.